The void of space had never seemed so empty, yet so full of menace. Commander Elias Vance stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the tactical display with the calm expression of a man who had already accepted his fate. The holographic projection showed 347 alien vessels, each one a kilometer in length, their smooth obsidian hulls reflecting no light, arranged in a perfect sphere around his ship. They had emerged from a fold in space-time 5 minutes ago, and in that time, they had surrounded the Defiance completely. There was no escape. The Defiance was a battleship, one of the finest in the United Nations space fleet, but it was alone. Its escort vessels had been destroyed in the initial engagement, their crews vaporized before they could even scream. The alien armada had come from the direction of the Cygnus constellation, and they had been hunting humanity for the past 3 years. They were called the Void Kind by the survivors of their attacks, and they showed no mercy, no quarter, and no reason for their genocidal campaign. Vance turned to his executive officer, Commander Sarah Chun. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady. She had been with him for 6 years, through the Battle of Proxima and the Siege of Kepler, 186F. She was the best officer he had ever served with, and he regretted that she would die here, on this ship, in this place. Status report, Vance said, his voice betraying no emotion. Weapons are at 83%, Chin replied. Shields at 62% and dropping. Engineering reports the Singularity Core is stable, but we can't maintain this level of power output indefinitely. We have approximately 4 hours of combat readiness before we start losing systems. And the enemy? Chin gestured to the holographic display. They're not moving. They formed a complete sphere around us at a distance of 5,000 kilometers. No communications, no demands, no threats. They're just waiting. Vance studied the display. The Void-kind ships were arranged in perfect geometric precision, each one equidistant from the others. They formed a cage of obsidian and malice, a prison in the depths of space. He had seen this formation before, in the aftermath of the Battle of Epsilon Eridani. The Void-kind had surrounded Admiral Torres's fleet in the same way, and then they had opened fire simultaneously, destroying all 47 ships in a single coordinated volley. Are we transmitting a distress signal? Vance asked. On all frequencies, Chin said. But there's no response. We're too far from any friendly outpost, and the Void-kind are jamming all subspace communications. We're alone, Commander. Vance nodded slowly. He had known this was coming. The Defiance had been on a reconnaissance mission in the Oort cloud, searching for Void-kind scout vessels, when the Armada had appeared from nowhere. It was a trap, and he had walked right into it. Now, his ship and his crew would pay the price. What about the civilian scientists on board? He asked. Are they secure? Chin's expression tightened. They're in the cargo bay, as you ordered. Dr. Eris is with them. She's demanding to speak with you. Vance allowed himself a small smile. Dr. Alara Eris was the chief xenobiologist assigned to the Defiance, and she was one of the most brilliant and most stubborn people he had ever met. She had been studying the Void-kind for 2 years, trying to understand their biology, their culture, their motivations. So far, she had found nothing. The Void-kind were as silent and inscrutable as the space they inhabited. Tell her I'll speak with her when I have something to report, Vance said. For now, I need to focus on keeping this ship alive. The bridge crew worked in silence, their faces grim but determined. They were the best of the best, handpicked by Vance himself, and they would not break. They would fight until the end, because that was what humans did. They fought. Vance walked to the main view screen, which showed the alien armada in all its terrifying glory. The Void-kind ships were massive, their surfaces smooth and featureless, like polished obsidian. They reflected no light, absorbing it completely, making them nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. If it weren't for their mass and their gravitational signatures, they would be impossible to detect. Their formation is perfect, Vance said, almost to himself. Every ship is positioned exactly where it should be. There's no deviation, no error. They're like machines. We've never seen them coordinate like this before, Chin said, joining him at the view screen. In previous engagements, they've attacked in waves, not as a single unit. This is different. This is deliberate. Vance nodded. They want us to know that we're trapped. They want us to feel the hopelessness of our situation. It's psychological warfare, Commander. They're trying to break us before they even fire a shot. Are they succeeding? Chen asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Vance turned to look at her, and for a moment, his mask slipped. She saw the fear in his eyes, the doubt, the weariness of a man who had been fighting a losing war for 3 years. But then the mask was back in place, and he was the commander again, calm and resolute. No, he said, they will never break us. We are human, and we do not break. We bend, we adapt, and we survive. That is what we do. Chen nodded, drawing strength from his words. She had seen him at his worst, in the aftermath of battles when the bodies were being counted and the survivors were being mourned. She had seen the weight of command on his shoulders, the guilt of every decision that cost lives, the burden of being responsible for the death of others. But she had never seen him give up, and she knew she wouldn't see it today. What are your orders, Commander? She asked. Vance turned back to the view screen, studying the alien armada. He had 4 hours, maybe less, and he intended to use every second of that time to find a way out of this trap. There had to be something, some weakness in their formation, some flaw in their strategy. The Void kind were powerful, but they were not invincible. They had made mistakes before, and they would make them again. Order all personnel to battle stations, Vance said. Charge the main cannon to maximum capacity and prepare the missile batteries for a full salvo. We're not going to sit here and wait for them to make the first move. We're going to hit them, and we're going to hit them hard. And then what? Chen asked. Vance smiled, a cold, grim smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then we see if they like a fight as much as we do. The bridge erupted into activity as the crew carried out his orders. Alarms blared, lights flashed, and the Defiance hummed with power as its weapons systems came online. On the view screen, the alien armada remained motionless, their obsidian hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. Vance watched them, his mind racing through possibilities. He knew the odds were against him, knew that this was probably the end. But he had made a promise to himself, a promise that he would never give up, no matter what. He had made that promise when his wife and daughter had been killed in the first Void-kind attack on Earth, and he had kept it every day since. Today would be no different. Commander, Chen said, breaking into his thoughts. I'm picking up something strange on the sensors. It's a subspace anomaly, about 10,000 kilometers beyond the enemy formation. Vance frowned. What kind of anomaly? I'm not sure, Chen admitted. It's not natural. It's like something is trying to break through from the other side of space-time. Vance stared at the sensor readings, a strange feeling creeping up his spine. He had been in space for 20 years, had seen things that defied explanation, but he had never encountered anything like this. It was as if the universe itself was reacting to their presence, as if the stars were awakening from a long slumber. Keep monitoring it, he said, and prepare a data packet for transmission, just in case. Chen nodded, turning back to her console. Vance returned his gaze to the view screen, watching the alien armada and the subspace anomaly beyond. He didn't know what was coming, but he knew one thing for certain. The battle for the Defiance was about to change in ways he couldn't possibly imagine. The stars themselves were about to turn against the Void kind. The subspace anomaly grew larger and more defined as the minutes passed. What had started as a faint disturbance in the fabric of space-time was becoming something far more substantial. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Vance and his crew watched with a mixture of awe and dread as the anomaly swirled like a great cosmic whirlpool, its center glowing with an incandescent light that seemed to pulse with a rhythm of its own. The readings are off the charts, Chen reported, her voice strained. The energy output is increasing exponentially. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. Vance studied the sensor data, his brow furrowed. The anomaly was located directly behind the alien armada, positioned in such a way that the Void-kind ships were caught between the Defiance and this strange phenomenon. It was as if the universe itself was intervening, placing the aliens in a trap of their own making. Can we identify the source of the anomaly? He asked. Chen shook her head. Negative, Commander. It's not matching any known pattern. It's not a wormhole, not a singularity, not any type of fold in space-time we've ever encountered. It's something else entirely. The crew murmured among themselves, their fear palpable. They had been prepared to face the Void kind, to fight and die if necessary. But this was something different, something beyond their understanding, and the unknown was always more terrifying than the known. Vance raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. Whatever it is, we need to stay focused. Our priority is the enemy in front of us. Maintain course and speed, and keep the weapons hot. As if in response to his words, the void-kind armada began to move. The ships shifted in formation, their perfect sphere distorting as they turned to face the subspace anomaly. For the first time, Vance saw something that resembled uncertainty in their movements. They were reacting to the anomaly, and they were clearly concerned about what it might be. They're changing formation, Chen said. They're reorienting their weapons toward the anomaly. It looks like they're preparing to engage. Vance nodded slowly, a grim smile spreading across his face. The void-kind had been hunting humanity for 3 years, destroying everything in their path. Now, for the first time, they were facing something that made them hesitate. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Hold our position, he ordered. Let them deal with the anomaly first. We'll use the chaos to our advantage. The alien armada opened fire on the subspace anomaly, unleashing a barrage of energy weapons that would have destroyed a fleet of human ships. Beams of dark energy, blacker than the void itself, lanced across space and struck the swirling light of the anomaly. But instead of dissipating, the anomaly absorbed the energy, its glow intensifying with each hit. It's absorbing their fire, Chen exclaimed. The energy from their weapons is making it stronger. Vance watched as the anomaly swelled, growing to twice its original size in a matter of seconds. The void-kind ships were now fully engaged, firing everything they had at the phenomenon, but it was no use. The anomaly was feeding on their attacks, becoming more powerful with each passing moment. Commander, Chen said, her voice trembling with excitement. I'm detecting something else. There are objects emerging from the anomaly. They're ships. Vance leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the view screen. He couldn't see the objects with the naked eye, not yet, but the sensors were showing dozens of contacts, then hundreds, then thousands. The anomaly was disgorging ships by the thousands, their forms shimmering as they emerged from the swirling light. What kind of ships? He asked. Are they friendly? I don't know, Chen admitted. They don't match any known configuration. They're ancient, Commander. The energy signatures suggest they've been in subspace for millennia, maybe longer. They're not void-kind, and they're not human. Vance took a deep breath, steadying himself. The battle had just become infinitely more complicated. He didn't know who or what was emerging from the anomaly, but he knew one thing for certain. The void-kind were now fighting on 2 fronts. The ancient ships continued to emerge from the anomaly, their forms becoming clearer as they drew closer to the battlefield. They were massive, even larger than the void-kind vessels, with hulls that appeared to be made of some crystalline material that glittered like diamond in the light of distant stars. Their design was elegant, almost organic, with sweeping curves and intricate patterns that seemed to flow like water. They're beautiful, Chen breathed, unable to contain her awe. Vance nodded, feeling a strange sense of wonder himself. These ships were clearly the product of a civilization far more advanced than humanity, perhaps even more advanced than the void-kind. And they had arrived at exactly the right moment, as if they had been waiting for this battle to begin. Commander, I'm detecting a transmission, a communications officer reported. It's originating from the ancient ships. It's directed at us. Put it through, Vance ordered, his heart racing. A voice filled the bridge, ancient and resonant, speaking in a language that was both familiar and alien. It took Vance a moment to realize that he could understand it, that the words were being translated in real time by some unknown process. We are the guardians of the void, the voice said. We have watched this conflict for 1,000 years, waiting for the moment when the stars would align and the time would be right. We have seen the void-kind spread across the galaxy, consuming everything in their path, and we have seen humanity fight against them with courage and determination. Vance listened in stunned silence, unable to believe what he was hearing. The guardians of the void had been watching them, observing their struggle, waiting for the right moment to intervene. You are worthy, the voice continued. Your defiance in the face of impossible odds has earned you the right to stand with us. Together, We will show the Void kind what it means to face the true masters of the stars. The ancient ships moved to engage the alien armada, their crystalline hulls glowing with power as they opened fire. Beams of light, pure and brilliant, lanced across space and struck the Void kind ships, tearing through their obsidian hulls with devastating effect. The alien armada, which had seemed so invincible just minutes before, was now being torn apart by the Guardians. "All hands, stand by to engage," Vance ordered, his voice filled with renewed determination. "We're not going to let them have all the fun. Target the nearest Void kind ships and open fire." The Defiance joined the battle, its weapons blazing as it struck the alien fleet. The Void kind were in disarray, their perfect formation shattered by the unexpected attack. They tried to regroup, to fight back against the combined forces of the Defiance and the Guardians, but it was no use. They were outmatched, outgunned, and out of time. Ship after ship exploded, their obsidian hulls shattering into millions of pieces that drifted through the void. The space around them was filled with the debris of the alien armada, a graveyard of lost souls. The Void kind, who had shown no mercy to humanity, were now receiving the same treatment they had inflicted on others. Vance watched the battle unfold, a sense of satisfaction washing over him. He had expected to die today, to sacrifice himself and his crew in a futile last stand. But instead, the stars had turned against the Void kind, and he was still alive, still fighting, still winning. "Commander," Chen said, her voice filled with wonder. "The Guardians are hailing us again." "Put them through," Vance said. The voice filled the bridge once more, its tone filled with ancient wisdom and power. "The battle is won, Commander Vance," it said. "The Void kind armada is destroyed. But there is more to come. The stars have awakened, and they will not sleep again until the galaxy is free of the tyrants who seek to consume it. Will you stand with us?" Vance looked at his crew, at the faces of the men and women who had followed him through countless battles, through endless hardship, through death itself. They were tired, they were wounded, but they were unbowed. They were human. "I will stand with you," Vance said. "All of us will stand with you. We will fight until every Void kind ship is destroyed, until the galaxy is free, until peace is restored. This I swear." The voice of the Guardians answered, filled with approval. "Then it is done. The alliance is sealed. Together, we will bring the fight to the Void kind and end their reign of terror forever. The stars are with us, Commander Vance. Let them guide you to victory." The transmission ended, and the bridge fell into a stunned silence. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The ancient ships of the Guardians had arrived, and humanity had found new allies in the fight against the Void kind. "Commander," Chen said, her voice soft. "What happens now?" Vance turned to look at her, a determined expression on his face. "Now," he said, "we take the fight to them. We show the Void kind what happens when you try to destroy humanity. We show them that the stars will not stand by while they conquer the galaxy. We show them that we are not just survivors, we are warriors. And we will never stop fighting." The crew cheered, their spirits lifted by the prospect of victory. They had come to this place expecting to die, but instead, they had found hope. They had found allies. They had found a reason to keep fighting. Vance allowed himself a moment of pride, looking at the faces of his crew. They had faced impossible odds and had emerged victorious. They had stood firm in the face of death and had refused to surrender. They were human, and they would not be broken. "Set a course for the nearest Void kind outpost," he ordered. "We're going hunting." The journey to the nearest Void kind outpost was long, but it gave Commander Vance and his crew time to recover from the battle and prepare for the challenges ahead. The Defiance had sustained significant damage during the engagement, but the ship's engineers had worked tirelessly to make repairs, and the ancient Guardians had provided assistance with advanced technology that seemed almost magical in its effectiveness. The alliance with the Guardians had brought new energy to the Defiance, new hope to its weary crew. They were no longer alone in their fight, no longer the last desperate defenders of humanity. They were part of something larger, something that spanned the galaxy and reached back to the dawn of time. "Commander, the Guardians are requesting a conference," Chen reported, her voice filled with curiosity. Vance nodded, making his way to the communications center. The Guardians had been strangely distant since the battle, their ships maintaining a respectful distance from the Defiance, and communicating only when necessary. But now, with the outpost looming ahead, they were reaching out. "Open a channel," Vance ordered, his tone crisp and focused. A holographic image materialized before him, showing a being of immense age and wisdom. Its form was not fully corporeal, more a collection of shimmering particles and light that coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape. It had no face, no discernible features, but Vance could feel its gaze upon him, ancient and knowing. "Commander Vance," the being said, its voice resonating with a harmony of sounds that seemed to vibrate in the very space around them. "We approach the Void-kind outpost. They are aware of our presence and are preparing their defenses. We must decide how to proceed." Vance studied the image before him, trying to understand this ancient being. He had learned much about the Guardians in the time since their alliance had been formed. They were the descendants of a civilization that had once dominated the galaxy, a civilization that had been destroyed by the Void-kind in a war so ancient that even the Guardians themselves had only fragmented memories of it. "You know this outpost," Vance said, a statement rather than a question. "You've been watching it for a long time." The being's particles shifted, a subtle acknowledgement. "We have observed the Void-kind for eons. They are patient, methodical, relentless. They consume star systems, devour civilizations, and move on to the next with the inevitability of the tide. But they are not invincible. They can be defeated, their structures can be dismantled, their armies can be routed. It requires only determination and sacrifice." Vance nodded, understanding the weight of those words. The Guardians were offering humanity a chance to fight back, to strike a blow against the enemy that had devastated their world. But that blow would come at a cost, and Vance knew that cost would be measured in lives. "What do you propose?" he asked. The being's form flickered, and an image appeared beside it, showing the Void-kind outpost in all its terrifying detail. It was a massive structure, a sphere of obsidian and dark energy that seemed to absorb the very light around it. It was a fortress, a base of operations from which the Void-kind launched their attacks on the galaxy. "The outpost is protected by a shield that deflects conventional weapons," the being explained. "Your missiles, your energy beams, even our most powerful attacks, will be ineffective against it. But there is a weakness, a point where the shield's power fluctuates. If we can strike that point at the right moment, with the right force, the shield will collapse, and the outpost will be vulnerable." Vance studied the schematic, his eyes moving to the point the being had indicated. It was a small target, a fraction of the outpost's total surface area, and it was heavily guarded. Reaching it would require precision, coordination, and sacrifice. "How do we reach this point?" Vance asked. "How do we get past the shield and the defenses?" The being's particles coalesced again, forming a shape that almost resembled a human hand. "We will provide a diversion, a false assault on the main shield generator. The Void-kind will commit their forces to defending it, leaving the weak point relatively undefended. Your ship, the Defiance, will use its speed and maneuverability to approach the weak point and deliver a strike that will shatter the shield." Vance considered the plan, weighing the risks against the potential rewards. It was bold, daring, and exactly the kind of thing he would have tried even without the Guardian's assistance. But it was also dangerous. And if the Defiance failed, if they were unable to breach the shield, the outpost would remain intact, and the Void-kind would continue their reign of terror. "The Defiance is damaged," Vance pointed out. "Can she handle the strain of this mission?" The being's particles glowed with an inner light. "We have been repairing your ship, Commander, fortifying its hull and enhancing its systems. Your vessel is now stronger than it has ever been, more resilient, more powerful. It will withstand the assault." Vance was silent for a long moment, considering all that had been said. He thought of his crew, of the families they had left behind on Earth, of the friends who had been lost to the Void-kind's unending hunger. He thought of his own family, of his wife and daughter, who had been taken from him so cruelly. And he thought of the future, of a galaxy free from the tyranny of the Void-kind. "We'll do it," he said at last. "Tell me what we need to know, and we'll do it." The being's particles pulsed with approval. "We will share with you the coordinates of the weak point, the timing of the shield's fluctuations, and the method by which you can strike it effectively. We will also provide you with a weapon, a device that we have created specifically for this purpose. It will focus the energy of your ship's singularity core into a single, devastating blast that will penetrate even the strongest shields. Vance listened as the being explained the details of the plan, absorbing every word. It was a complex operation, requiring perfect timing and coordination, but Vance was confident that his crew could execute it. They had faced worse odds before, and they had emerged victorious. "Very well," Vance said when the briefing was over. "We will prepare for the assault. When do we move?" "The moment is approaching," the being replied. "The shield's fluctuation will be at its maximum in 6 hours. We will launch our diversionary assault at that time, and you will strike the weak point. The fate of this sector, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy, will depend on your success." Vance nodded, his expression grim but determined. "We will not fail." The being's form flickered and began to fade. "We know you will not, Commander. The stars have chosen you for this purpose. Do not disappoint them." The hologram vanished, leaving Vance alone in the communications center. He stood for a moment, gathering his thoughts, before turning to walk back to the bridge. The weight of the mission rested heavily on his shoulders, but he bore it willingly, gladly. This was what he had been fighting for, what he had been preparing for, ever since the Void Kind had first attacked his home world. On the bridge, the crew was already preparing for the assault. Chun was coordinating the weapons systems, the engineers were fine-tuning the singularity core, and the pilots were running simulations of the approach trajectory. Everyone knew what was at stake, and everyone was determined to succeed. "Commander on the bridge," Chun announced as Vance entered. "At ease," Vance said, moving to his command chair. "What's our status?" Chun turned to face him, her expression focused and professional. "Ship is at 95% operational capacity. Weapons systems are fully charged, shields are at maximum, and the singularity core is stable. We're ready for the mission." Vance nodded, pleased with the report. "Good. Now, let's go over the plan one more time. I want everyone to know their role and the sequence of events. This is a complex operation, and we can't afford any mistakes." The crew gathered around the holographic display, and Vance began to walk them through the plan. He pointed out the weak point, explained the timing of the shield's fluctuation, and outlined the method of attack. He made sure that everyone understood the importance of their role and the consequences of failure. "This is our moment," he said, his voice ringing with conviction. "This is what we've been fighting for. We've been running from the Void Kind for 3 years, losing ships, losing worlds, losing people we loved. But now, we have a chance to turn the tide, to strike back and show them what we're made of. We will succeed, because failure is not an option." The crew responded with a chorus of agreement, their spirits lifted by his words. They were ready, they were willing, and they were determined to win. Vance turned to the view screen, where the distant form of the Void Kind outpost was visible against the backdrop of space. It was massive, intimidating, and it represented everything that humanity had been fighting against. But it was also vulnerable, and Vance intended to exploit that vulnerability to its fullest extent. "All hands, prepare for battle," he ordered. "We're going to show the Void Kind what happens when you try to destroy humanity. We're going to make them pay for every life they've taken, every world they've consumed, every dream they've shattered. We're going to win." The crew responded with a cheer, their voices echoing through the bridge. Vance felt a surge of pride, seeing the determination in their eyes. They were human, and they would not break. The Defiance began to move, positioning itself for the assault. The 6 hours passed quickly, filled with anticipation and tension. The crew worked tirelessly, checking systems and running final simulations, making sure everything was perfect. Finally, the moment arrived. The Guardians launched their diversionary assault, bombarding the Void Kind outpost with a barrage of energy weapons. The Void Kind responded, mobilizing their forces to defend the main shield generator, just as planned. "Now," Vance ordered, "engage the singularity core and target the weak point." The Defiance surged forward, its engines blazing as it raced toward the outpost. The singularity core hummed with power, feeding energy into the weapon that the Guardians had provided. The ship shook and groaned under the strain, but it held together, its strengthened hull resisting the forces that would have torn it apart. The weak point grew closer, and Vance focused on the targeting reticle, aligning the Defiance with the precise spot that would bring the shield down. The Void-kind ships were starting to turn toward them, alerted by the unexpected attack, but they were too late. Now, Vance shouted. Fire! The weapon unleashed its energy, a beam of pure light that lanced across space and struck the weak point with devastating force. The shield flickered, crackled, and then shattered, collapsing into a cascade of energy that dissipated into the void. The outpost was exposed, vulnerable, and the Defiance moved in for the kill. Missiles streaked through space, energy beams flashed, and the Void-kind outpost began to crumble. The ancient ships of the Guardians joined the attack, their own weapons adding to the destruction. Vance watched as the outpost disintegrated, a grim satisfaction settling over him. They had done it. They had struck a blow against the Void-kind, a blow that would reverberate through the galaxy. The stars had turned against the Void-kind, and they would not stop until the enemy was destroyed. The destruction of the Void-kind outpost sent shockwaves through the galaxy, rippling across the vast expanse of space and reaching even the most distant corners. For the first time in 3 years, humanity had reason to hope, reason to believe that the war against the Void-kind could be won. The alliance with the Guardians had given them a new purpose, a new strength, and a new weapon in their fight for survival. Commander Vance stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the debris of the outpost drift through space. The battle had been hard-fought, and many lives had been lost, but the victory had been decisive. The Void-kind had been dealt a significant blow, and Vance knew that the enemy would not take it lightly. They're going to retaliate, Chen said, joining him at the view screen. They're not going to let us get away with this. Vance nodded, his expression grim. I know. That's why we need to be prepared. The Guardians have been tracking Void-kind movements throughout the galaxy, and they've identified several potential targets for our next strike. We need to hit them hard and fast before they have a chance to regroup. Chen studied the holographic display, her brow furrowed. There's one target that stands out. It's a Void-kind fleet, a massive one, gathering in the Orion Nebula. The Guardians believe it's intended to launch a counterattack against Earth. Vance's blood ran cold at the mention of Earth. He had been away from his home world for too long, had seen too many other worlds destroyed by the Void-kind. The thought of Earth falling to the same fate was unbearable. We can't let that happen, he said. We need to stop that fleet before it reaches Earth. What are our options? Chen brought up the tactical display, showing the composition and deployment of the Void-kind fleet. It was massive, hundreds of ships, far more than the Defiance and the Guardians could handle alone. But there was a weakness, a vulnerability in the fleet's formation that could be exploited. The fleet is arranged in a defensive formation around a command ship, Chen explained. If we can destroy that command ship, the rest of the fleet will be thrown into disarray. They'll be easier to pick off, easier to destroy. Vance studied the display, his mind racing through tactical possibilities. It was a daring plan, a desperate one, but it was the best option they had. We'll need to coordinate our attack with the Guardians. We'll hit the command ship from multiple angles, overwhelming its defenses and taking it out before the rest of the fleet can react. I'll contact the Guardians and coordinate the attack, Chen said, turning to her console. Vance watched her go, feeling a surge of pride in his crew. They had been through so much together, had faced impossible odds, and emerged victorious. And now, they were preparing to do it all over again, to strike at the heart of the enemy and show them that humanity would not be defeated. The Guardians confirmed their participation in the attack, and the Defiance began to move toward the Orion Nebula. The journey was long, but the crew used the time to rest and prepare for the battle ahead. They knew it would be the most dangerous mission they had ever undertaken, a fight that would determine the fate of Earth itself. As they drew closer to their destination, Vance felt a growing sense of unease. The Void-kind had been preparing for this counterattack for a long time, and they would be ready for any assault. They would have defenses in place, traps waiting to be sprung, and Vance knew that the battle would be brutal. We're approaching the fleet's position, Chen reported, her voice steady. The Guardians are in position, ready to attack on your command. Vance took a deep breath, steadying himself. All hands, prepare for battle. This is it. This is the battle that will decide the fate of Earth. We will not fail. The crew responded with a chorus of agreement, their voices filled with determination. Vance turned to the view screen, where the Void-kind fleet was beginning to take shape, a dark cloud of ships stretching across the vast expanse of space. "Engage the enemy," he ordered. "Target the command ship and open fire." The Defiance surged forward, its weapons blazing as it struck the Void-kind fleet. The Guardians joined the attack, their own weapons adding to the fury of the assault. The Void-kind ships responded in kind, their dark energy beams lancing across space and striking the Defiance's shields. The battle was fierce, the fighting intense. Ship after ship exploded, their crews vaporized in an instant. The space around them became a graveyard, filled with the debris of fallen warriors. But the Defiance pushed forward, determined to reach the command ship. "Shields at 50%, Chen reported. "We can't sustain this level of firepower for long." Vance nodded, his eyes fixed on the target. "We only need to hold on a little longer. The Guardians are providing cover fire. We can make it." The Defiance continued its advance, weaving through the Void-kind ships, dodging energy beams and missiles. It was a dance of death, a ballet of destruction, and Vance piloted his ship through it with practiced ease. "We're within range of the command ship," Chen announced. "Weapons are locked on target." "Fire," Vance ordered. The Defiance's main cannon unleashed its fury, a beam of pure energy that struck the command ship's shields. The Guardians joined in, their own weapons adding to the attack. The command ship's shields flickered, weakened, and then collapsed, exposing its vulnerable hull. "Target the bridge," Vance ordered. "Take it out." The Defiance fired again, its weapon striking the command ship's bridge. The ship shuddered, its systems failing, and then exploded in a blinding flash of light. The command ship was destroyed, and the rest of the Void-kind fleet was thrown into disarray. "Now," Vance shouted, "destroy the rest of the fleet." The battle continued for hours, the Defiance and the Guardians hunting down the remaining Void-kind ships one by one. It was brutal, bloody, and costly, but in the end, the Void-kind fleet was annihilated. Vance stood on the bridge, watching the debris drift through space. They had done it. They had stopped the counterattack against Earth. They had saved their home world. "It's over," Chen said, her voice filled with disbelief. "We actually did it." Vance nodded, feeling a profound sense of relief. "It's over. For now. But the Void-kind will keep coming, and we need to be ready for them. With the Guardians on our side, we can win," Chen said. "We can end this war once and for all." Vance turned to look at her, a determined expression on his face. "Yes, we will end this war. The Void-kind have taken too much from us, destroyed too many worlds. It's time for them to pay the price." The Defiance began to move, its crew recovering from the battle and preparing for the next stage of their journey. They had won a great victory, but there was still much work to be done. The war against the Void-kind was far from over, but they were one step closer to victory. Vance watched the stars pass by, each one a symbol of hope, a reminder that the galaxy was filled with possibilities. The Void-kind had tried to extinguish that hope, to darken those stars, but they had failed. The stars had turned against them, and now, the galaxy was beginning to awaken. The future was uncertain, but Vance knew one thing for certain. He would never give up. He would keep fighting, keep pushing forward, until the galaxy was free of the Void-kind's tyranny. It was a promise he had made to his wife and daughter, a promise he intended to keep. The Defiance continued its journey, a beacon of hope in the darkness of space. The stars were with them, and they would not fail. The months that followed were filled with battles and victories, each one bringing humanity closer to the final defeat of the Void-kind. Commander Vance and his crew became legends, their names whispered with reverence across the galaxy. The alliance with the Guardians had grown stronger, their combined forces sweeping across the Void-kind territories, freeing enslaved worlds and breaking their power. But the war was not yet won. The Void-kind, though battered and bruised, were still a formidable threat, and they had not given up their ambition of consuming the galaxy. Their leaders, ancient beings of pure malevolence, had retreated to their home world, a dark planet at the center of a dead star system, where they were preparing for a final stand. Vance knew that the final confrontation was coming. The Guardians had informed him of the Void-kind's plan, a desperate attempt to destroy the galaxy itself in a final act of spite. They had created a weapon, a device that could tear the fabric of space-time apart, unleashing a cataclysm that would consume everything in its path. "Commander," The Guardians are hailing us, Chen said, her voice tense. Put them through, Vance ordered. The being's holographic image flickered to life, its form filled with concern. Commander Vance, the Void kind have activated their weapon. The space-time rupture is already beginning to form. In hours, it will expand and consume everything within 1,000 light-years. Vance felt a chill run down his spine. Is there any way to stop it? The being's particles swirled, deep in thought. There is one chance. The weapon is controlled by a central core, located in the heart of the Void kind homeworld. If we can reach that core and destroy it, the weapon will be disabled. But the homeworld is heavily defended, and the Void kind will do everything in their power to stop us. Vance nodded, his mind already racing through tactical possibilities. We'll need a small team, a strike force capable of penetrating the defenses and reaching the core. The Defiance can handle the approach, but we'll need to send a ground team to destroy the core from within. It is a suicide mission, the being said. The Void kind will not let you reach the core without a fight. Vance smiled grimly. I know, but it's a fight we're willing to have. We've come too far to give up now. We've lost too much to let them destroy everything. We'll stop them, no matter the cost. The being's form flickered, a gesture of acknowledgement. Then we will provide what support we can. We will draw the Void kind's attention, allowing your strike force to land. The rest is up to you. Vance turned to his crew, his expression filled with determination. You heard the Guardian. We're going on a suicide mission. This is the end, one way or another. But if we succeed, we'll end the Void kind's reign of terror forever. Who's with me? The crew responded with a chorus of agreement, their voices filled with courage and conviction. They had followed him through countless battles, through impossible odds, and they would follow him now, to the end. Prepare the strike force, Vance ordered. We're going to end this. The Defiance surged forward, racing toward the Void kind homeworld. The Guardians provided cover, engaging the Void kind ships that swarmed to intercept them. The battle was fierce, the fighting desperate, but the Defiance pushed through, its strengthened hull holding against the onslaught. Approaching the homeworld, Chen reported. The atmosphere is toxic, the surface covered in dark cities. The core is located in the central complex. Vance nodded, his hand resting on the weapon he had been given by the Guardians. It was a powerful device, capable of destroying the core in a single blast. But it would take time to set up, time they might not have. We're going to land near the central complex, Vance said. The strike force will move in, plant the weapon, and get out. Everyone else will provide cover fire and keep the Void kind occupied. Understood. The crew nodded, their faces grim. They knew the risks, knew that many of them might not survive. But they were willing to make that sacrifice for the sake of the galaxy. The Defiance descended through the toxic atmosphere, its engines roaring as it approached the surface. The Void kind defenders were waiting, their weapons blazing, but the Defiance's shields held, absorbing the damage. Landing zone secured, Chen said. The strike force is ready to move out. Vance turned to his team, a group of the most experienced and brave soldiers he had ever commanded. They were his brothers and sisters, his family, and he loved them all. Let's go, he said. We have a galaxy to save. The strike force moved out, racing toward the central complex. The Void kind defenders swarmed them, but they fought with courage and skill, driving the enemy back. The Guardians provided air support, their ships bombarding the Void kind positions. We're almost there, Vance said, his voice filled with excitement. The core is ahead. We can do this. The team reached the core, a massive sphere of dark energy at the center of the complex. The Void kind leaders were waiting for them, ancient beings of pure malice, their forms radiating malevolence. You cannot destroy us, one of them hissed, its voice filled with hatred. We are eternal. We are inevitable. You cannot stop the end. Vance smiled, his expression cold. We'll see about that. He moved to the core, planting the weapon at its base. The Void kind leaders attacked, but the strike force held them off, fighting with everything they had. The weapon hummed with power, its timer counting down. Get back, Vance shouted. Everyone get back. The team retreated, running for their lives as the weapon began to pulse with energy. The Void kind leaders screamed in rage, but it was too late. The weapon detonated, and the core shattered, unleashing a wave of energy that destroyed the Void kind homeworld. Vance watched from the shuttle as the planet exploded, its dark cities crumbling into dust. The void kind were gone. Their reign of terror finally ended. The galaxy was free. "Commander," Chen said, her voice filled with awe. "We did it. We actually did it." Vance nodded, feeling a profound sense of peace. "Yes, we did. It's over." The shuttle returned to the Defiance, and Vance walked onto the bridge, his crew cheering him. He had led them through hell and back, and they had emerged victorious. The stars had turned against the void kind, and humanity had survived. "Commander Vance," the Guardian's voice echoed across the bridge. "You have done what no one else could. You have freed the galaxy from the void kind. The stars will remember you, as will we. You are a legend, a hero." Vance smiled, his eyes filled with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without my crew, without the Guardians, without everyone who fought by our side. This victory belongs to all of us." The crew cheered again, their voices echoing through the bridge. They had won. The war was over. The future was bright. Vance looked out at the stars, his heart filled with hope. The galaxy was free, and humanity would survive. The void kind were gone, and nothing would ever threaten the galaxy again. "Set a course for Earth," he ordered. "It's time to go home." The Defiance began to move, its engines humming as it headed toward the stars. The journey would be long, but Vance didn't mind. He had all the time in the world, and the galaxy was at peace. The stars were with them, and they would never forget it.